You will fall by my hand, He-Man.
The internet loves Skeletor. 40 years of failure, every plan ruined, every scheme dismantled, every subordinate an active liability. He screamed into the void, and the void sent Beastman back with an explanation. Beastman's explanations are, by any standard of communication I have encountered across 400 species, their own category of failure. And he became the most beloved villain in animation history. From my observations, that makes what I am about to document considerably worse, because it objectively, measurably, categorically sucks to be Skeletor. Observation log, Skeletor. 6 entries. I said I had a separate file. I am opening it now. Let us enter. 6. Keldor. Born with a name, born with a claim, born with the wrong face. Keldor was the firstborn son of King Miro of Eternia, the rightful heir to the throne by every law the kingdom recognized. He was intelligent, magically gifted, trained beyond what the position required. He had one disqualification. His mother was Gar. The Gar are a people of Eternia marked by blue skin. They carried, in the history of the kingdom, a prophecy that a Gar would one day bring ruin to the planet. Not evidence, not action. A prophecy and a skin color. That was sufficient for a palace to look at its firstborn son and decide, not him. His younger brother Randor, same father, different mother, different skin, was celebrated as the golden child of Eternia. The throne passed Keldor as if he were furniture. He watched. He learned what the palace thought of him. And then he left and went looking for power in the only places that would have him. 17 civilizations in my archive excluded descendants from inheritance based on bloodline rather than capability. In 14 of those 17, the excluded individuals became the most destabilizing forces in their civilization's history. Not because they were born destructive, because the system gave them no direction that was not already closed. One of those 17, the Vareth Conclave of the Mira Cluster, used a star alignment at birth to exclude half-bloods from governance for 600 years. They lasted an additional 80 after the excluded class organized. Eternia used a prophecy. The mechanism is different. The efficiency is comparable. The monster Eternia made had not yet been made, but the blueprint existed. It was drawn the day a palace looked at its firstborn and decided the face was the problem. 5. The face. He threw acid at his brother during battle. The shield deflected it. His own weapon came back to him. The flesh dissolved. What remained was bone, a floating skull, permanent, impossible to ignore. In his desperation, he called on Hordak, his mentor, the closest thing he had to someone who would answer. Hordak saved his life by binding Keldor's consciousness to what remained. Keldor was gone. Skeletor existed. Keldor had a face that Eternia spent years deciding was the wrong one. Blue, Gar, marked by a prophecy he had nothing to do with. And then, in a single moment of failed violence, the face the world had rejected was replaced by one the world cannot look away from. A skull, permanent, undeniable. He lost a face the world had refused. He gained a face the world cannot ignore. I have filed this under the face as verdict. I'm not satisfied with that classification. I have not found a better one. The absence of the right category is itself a kind of answer. 4. The wrong teacher. Hordak was there when Keldor had nowhere else to go. The architecture of the false mentor is consistent across species. They do not arrive when things are good. They arrive at the lowest point, when a being is desperate enough to accept any extended hand without asking what the hand expects in return. Hordak treated Keldor's talent as a resource, not a person, a capability to be used. He taught him the dark arts, gave him access to interdimensional travel, to the Horde's infrastructure, to a framework for his rage. He made Keldor formidable. He never made him seen. For context, Skeletor's current operational team includes Beastman, Trapjaw, and a man called Merman, whose primary qualification appears to be smelling of the ocean. This is the infrastructure Hordak's mentorship produced. I have filed it under Outcomes. 11 documented cases of this pattern. In all 11, the protege eventually attempted to surpass or destroy the mentor. What a false mentor builds is not loyalty. It is a debt that becomes resentment. A false mentor does not create the darkness. He gives it a direction and calls it purpose. 3. Grayskull again. In the He-Man file, I noted that Castle Grayskull told me no 3 times, without hostility, without explanation, simply no. Skeletor has been told no by Grayskull for decades. He has not accepted it. I accepted it after 3 attempts and found other things to observe. He has constructed his entire existence around the question that door refuses to answer. Every plan, every campaign, every remaining soldier, all of it aimed at a castle that will not open. In 40 years of documented attempts, he has tried tunneling, teleportation, biological weaponry, dimensional rifts, and on one occasion, what I can only describe as a very large trebuchet. The door has not opened. He has scheduled another attempt. I respect the commitment more than I expected to. He has never put it down. I do not know if that is obsession or the only form of faith he has left. I have not resolved it. 2. The file. I said I would not open. In the He-Man log, I noted that the enemy was family. I said I had a separate file. I said I would not open it there. Keldor is the half-brother of King Randor, which makes Skeletor the uncle of Prince Adam, which makes the most dangerous enemy He-Man has ever faced, the closest blood relative he has on Eternia outside his own parents. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Neither of them knows. He-Man does not know he has spent years defending the kingdom from his own uncle. Skeletor does not know the figure behind the sword is his brother's son. They have fought across decades without either of them possessing the one fact that would reframe everything. 5 conflicts in my archive involved parties who were family without knowing it. In none of those cases did the blood make it easier. It made it quieter and considerably harder to file. He has called his nephew an overgrown farm boy to his face repeatedly. His nephew has called him back worse. This is, in several continuities, the most frequent family interaction either of them has. I have documented warmer reunions, not many. 1. The window. In several continuities, the ones I find most difficult to close, there are moments before the acid, before Hordak, before the skull, moments where Keldor was still Keldor. He was gifted, he was angry, he had been failed early and had not yet decided what to do about it. The palace had marked him. The prophecy had arrived before he did. Hordak had not yet found him. There was a window, narrow, already closing, in which a different direction was still available. The monster Eternia made was not inevitable. That is the observation I find most difficult to hold. The question historians ask is always the same. Why did he become Skeletor? That is the wrong question. The right question is, in the cases where they didn't, what was different? What arrived before Hordak did? Who looked at the firstborn son with the wrong face and said, not the prophecy? You, I see you. The answer appears 12 times in my archive. It was never a system. It was never an institution. It was never a throne. It was always a person. Eternia did not send 1. 6 entries, 1 pattern. The internet loves Skeletor because it recognized something the show never said out loud. He is the most honest character in the franchise. He does not perform nobility. He does not feel. He refuses to pretend the wound is not there. He wants what he was promised. He says so, and he fails with a commitment that is, by any external measure, extraordinary. What the internet loves is not the villain. It is the person underneath the skull, the one who was told long before the acid that he did not belong, who showed up anyway. I have a word for this in my documentation. It translates poorly. Humans are, from my observations, the species that most reliably recognizes its own wounds in the wrong places, in villains, in failures, in the ones who return after they have already lost everything. I find this more accurate than most things I have documented about them, and harder to document without something I do not have a category for. I have a file for beings who became what they are because no one showed them another direction. It is my longest file. Skeletor is not at the top. He is not even close to the top. That is the part I find most difficult to document.